You are listening to the Marriage Clinic podcast, a podcast on love, marriage, and personal development. Our purpose is to inspire and equip you with knowledge and skills to enable you to have lasting and fulfilling relationships. Now your host, Joshua Mulgrew.
Hello, this is the Marriage Clinic podcast. It's another week, another episode, and we keep going strong in this year. My name is Dr. Joshua Mulgrew, but as I love to say, call me Uncle Josh. And it's a great pleasure to be bringing you the Marriage Clinic today. Last week, we had part one of a lovely interview between two people who have been married for over 38 years. 38 years. That is longer than some of you have been alive. And I think the story gives us hope that love exists, hope that marriages can be worked on, hope that you can marry potential. And we are doing part two. We're doing part two today. So please jump in. Let's connect with Archbishop Agyinasare and his lovely wife, Mama Vivi. And I'll be back at the end of this to give you some more information. Let's go.
Fast forward a little bit. We now had to do the wedding. You had gone for the list. I didn't have everything on the list. I got some from my sisters.
You got some from your sisters. Then I also started buying a few things because I was working. And so what I had, just brought them a few.
Brought me some pieces of cloth.
And then
brought me some new undies.
Yes.
You had bought the necklace, a few other things.
Yes, I did a lot of additions. And your sisters also did, your mom, and
Yes.
that was how.
So you contributed
Yeah,
to make it happen.
exactly.
You contributed, and I thought that should come out. You contributed to make it happen. You didn't just sit back and say, look, I like the guy likes me, but we don't have all that it takes. So if it will take him 5 years to get everything and I have it, I'll keep it until he marries me. And then we had our wedding. But by the grace of God, it was a great wedding.
It was.
God really glorified himself.
It was.
People came from all the surrounding towns and cities I had preached in, but they came in buses.
Yes.
And so the offering that came for us was a good offering. Then, yes, that we could have used because when we got married, you were living in Akimoda and we had a wedding in Akimoda. My dad was the highways boss in Akimoda and I didn't have a place. And, when you asked me where we would stay, I remember I said, it's because of me you had your chamber in the hall. I was rapping you.
Yeah, I know. You were bragging, though.
Said it was because of me you had the chamber in the hall. And, you had these 3 sets of chairs in the living room. And we got married. We got this money. Could have furnished that place, bought us a fridge and all that. And what happened with the money?
Oh, you just told me you wanted to hold another crusade, and is it Takwa?
Takwa.
So you were going to use the money for
Crusade
handbills and posters. I was wondering, all this money? You said yes. So when you went to ask of the cost of all these things, we realized that it will just be equal to how much we had. So you took everything and you went
for
and
the crusade.
Went and held a big crusade in Takwa. It was
that was
very
when the Patanji fetish priestess son got healed.
Yeah, that was when we met Pastor Kujo and
Tama,
a lot of Christians. Yeah.
Wow.
And it was very fulfilling. I have never regretted we invested that money in the gospel crusade.
Amen.
Amen.
Fast forward, we got married. 4 months after we got married, I tell you I'm going to Bible school. So how did you take it?
It was really a blow.
And I wasn't going to Bible school in Ghana. I was going
No,
to Bible school in Nigeria.
And you were going to fly out
For 1 year.
for 1 year.
Wow.
And I thought it wasn't fair. Inside me, I was weeping or crying. But outside, I will show a very good countenance. And the time came and you left. Then, like I said, there was no telephone. We were only communicating through telegram. And
Yeah, when you want to do a telephone international
Yeah.
IDD, you need to queue.
yeah,
You know.
and then letter writing, when anyone is coming down, you write, and I also write back. That was how we were communicating till you did almost 1 year and came back.
Whilst I was in Bible school, you were alone.
Yeah.
So how were you? How did you feel? How were you managing it? How were you processing the whole thing?
And when you left, I made myself busy. And I continued with what I was doing before I met you. In church, I was involved. And my pastor then went for their Bible school. And so we had some of the brothers who were leading us. Some of them were in university leading us. So we also joined to help the church to grow. We took it upon ourselves to witness around, to keep the church growing. And in the Christian fellowship, we also did the same thing.
I think you were the secretary in the Christian
yeah.
fellowship too.
And in the Assemblies of God, it was a small church. We were about 50. And I was the women's secretary there. So I was busy from one meeting to the other. Sundays we go for the Christian fellowship. And that was it, yeah. So I was busy doing the work of God till you came back.
So you really, it really didn't hit you too much?
Not too much.
Okay.
Not too much.
Okay. I came back. You met me at the airport, very excited. And we get home. And in the night, I tell you that the following day, I'm taking my things. I'm going to fast and pray because I'm going to reach the world.
Yeah.
And that night, you didn't talk again till the following morning. When I woke up the following morning, I knew that I had to change my mind.
Yes.
So, and the Holy Spirit helped me, you know. The Lord said, look, your wife is not happy. You can't go and fast and pray. And so I changed my mind. And I realized that we couldn't just be spiritual. We needed to also, we are human beings. We live in a human body. And we needed to also fulfill our righteousness. So I changed it. I think I went 2 weeks after I had arrived to fast and pray.
And when you came back, you said to me you were going to start a church in Agyinasare. And I told you it can't be possible. You did this great crusade, gospel crusade in Agyinasare. You are coming not too long ago, and you are coming back to say you are starting a church. Meanwhile, the people knew you were not living there. You were not going to stay there. So I said, okay.
And I had told you I was going to Tamale.
Tamale. So I said, but you said you were going to Tamale. Why not follow the voice of God? What God told you. So we start something in Tamale. Though I didn't know Tamale. I was bred in Tema. I'd never traveled.
And then you went to school in
Crusade. I went to school, Holy Child. And was just teaching in Agyinasare. So it was like this. I'd never traveled out. I never knew Kumasi, let alone Tamale. But when you said you were going to go to Tamale, it's okay. If God said it, then let it happen. And so you retreated what you said, and then you went out to pray. And when you came back, you told me I'm going to go with some few people to Tamale to start the crusade. Whilst I joined. So you went, and that was how Tamale Church was started.
Wow. And then you come to Tamale, and we were hosted by the then Agri Development Bank manager for some weeks. And then after, we needed to get that man was so good to us.
Yeah.
So good to us. After that, we needed to rent our own place. We got our own place, which was owned by the late Mr. Angenu, the father of Honorable Joshua Alabi.
Yeah.
And at the Vitin Estates. And we moved to the Vitin Estates, to this house without electricity and pipe-borne water. So by the time you went to Akimoda and came back, you came into this house without electricity and pipe-borne water. And how did you feel?
In fact, it was like a dream, because the number of people who were in the house alone was scary.
A two-bedroom and a living room house.
A two-bedroom and a living room. And there were a lot of people in the house.
Probably about 8
or 9.
Or more.
To cater for. And there was no water. There was no electricity. But, God gave me the grace to handle all these people. To cook and share, go to school, come back, cook and share. And then the next day we have to eat. I don't know how it happened, but I believe that it was God who provided. Yeah, God took care of us.
That time I wasn't on a salary from the church. It's only as the Lord blessed me, and then your salary. That's what we lived by for 2 years.
2 years. God was so merciful. There was a time that a brother came and said, I'm going to take care of your drinking water, Brother Jokoto.
Okay.
He was then working at...
once a while, in those days, Mr. Philip Abango, he had a motorbike.
Yes.
So he would also fetch pipe-borne water and bring us.
But the ones that we used to cook, we use alum, we fetch
we fetch the water from the dam.
And then add alum to make it clear.
Settle.
That was what we were using for washing and cooking. But the ones that we drink, people just opted to bring us water. And that was how we lived till we moved from Vitin to Agric.
Yeah, when we rented the Bugrinabu house.
Yes.
But before we rented the Bugrinabu house, from Vitin those days, now Vitin has joined the city.
Yeah.
So when you talk about Vitin, people don't see, but it used to be about probably 5 kilometers.
Yes.
And days that we couldn't take a taxi, we walked to church. We got to church before service started.
It was a distance.
And I remember those days, you were pregnant then. We walk, and at times if it had rained, we walked through the rain to church. And we're still dedicated and committed.
You have to
make sure that
everything is set for church before the church members came in for church service. And so it was a trying time, but it was just a period. And
God honored our faith.
Yeah.
God honored our faith.
Coming to live with me in the compound house, how did you feel?
Oh, I didn't even notice it. Because I was a village preacher. Even though I lived in Accra, I was preaching in the small towns and villages. And so for me, it wasn't a big deal. Even though my father, from when I was 11, always had a bungalow. Because when I was 11, he was made a highways boss at Shah Hills. They gave him a bungalow. When he moved to Tamale, he had a bungalow. When he moved to Akimodan, he had a bungalow. So, but going into a compound house didn't mean anything to me. In fact, for me, the most important thing was I found a woman I loved. She had a place. The two of us were sharing. And I didn't see it as a place. I saw it as our place. You know, I in fact, I took charge of the place. Because I had held a crusade in Akimoda, and a lot of the young pastors coming up and people who wanted to do ministry in the daytime, they would come to the house
to come and eat.
And when they came, I would ask you to cook
for
them to eat. In a day, we were feeding 10, 12 people.
Yeah.
I remember those days because we didn't have much money. We bought a lot of poke. Pork.
Yeah.
It was the cheapest
in town. Because of the famine in 83.
Yes. And so we would buy a lot of pork, and then we did and every day
there was food. Every day there was food. God supplied.
And some of the guys would come and sit from morning to night. So they would eat breakfast, lunch, supper in the house. And we never complained.
No.
For me, it was exciting that I had people I could preach to, I could talk to, I could motivate, I could encourage. And that has been it. This part of my story, we've never discussed it openly before. But I remember after Selassie, we've had Selassie, who is now a bishop and a doctor, a medical doctor. You got pregnant, and I had to go and preach for my dear friend, Pastor Eastwood. And I went with you. And the road was bad. And by the time, and I had planned a crusade. I was coming back into the crusade. And by the time we returned from Bolga, you had a miscarriage. And that night was the night I was starting the crusade.
Yeah. When we went to Bolga, because the road was bad. Then the Tamale roads were not tarred.
Yeah. Most of it was.
Most of it were not tarred. And so you can imagine Tamale, the city, the original. So Bolga was rough. Takes you hours to get to Bolga. And so when we were going, it was shaking. When those days, the cars were not very comfortable. And so we went, and I was feeling uncomfortable in there.
You were how many months pregnant?
About 4, almost 5. And when we returned on our journey back, it was the same. So after a day or two, I started having contraction and feeling pains in my tummy. And so a nurse who was a church member, a midwife who was a church member, came, and I told her my experience, and she said, okay, you can't be in the house. Let's go to the hospital. So she took me to the hospital, and we went. I saw the gynecologist. And at the hospital, immediately, the doctor started screening me and everything. By the time I realized I had miscarriage and everything came out, and I had to go for DNC to clean my womb. And it was a bitter experience. I cried, and but then you were going for the crusade.
I was doing the crusade,
so you left.
We did that crusade. My second crusade at the police park.
Yes, I
left the house to go and do the crusade. It was a price we had to pay. On the road. 1994. Fast forward 1994. We had to finally leave Tamale to Accra, and we left a house, Bugrin Abu's house, which had about 5 rooms, and then had an outhouse of about 4 rooms, and a compound of about 2 acres compound, and come to Accra and go and live in my father's house for 6 months in a single room. So a lot of our stuff were on the porch and some in the corridor.
It wasn't easy because then we brought your personal assistant.
Okay.
Apostle Sylvia.
Yeah, yes, and the husband.
And the husband. And the baby, the firstborn. They were also living in a small room in your father's house there. And When we
And then
cook,
all my children, we had 3 kids.
Yeah.
They were also
so
sleeping with us in the one room.
One room. And when we
So when
the whole
when
place,
the wind was blowing and there had to be a move, there could even not be a move.
no, how could it be? And so, you know, it was so tight for us. You have to take care of your in-law. You couldn't even cook and say it's me and my family. You have to share. You know,
Cook for everybody.
cook for everybody. It wasn't easy, but we were able to go through it. It was fine.
I spent that time
Praying, yeah.
most nights because here you are going to sleep, the children are there. You don't have any expectation.
No. And the bed was so
because
small.
The bed was small, so the expectation of the righteous could never be granted. And so every night I had to spend most of the night praying, asking God to give a breakthrough in Accra and to open the heavens over us. And God really did. God came through for us.
Give us a house in Adenta.
Yes, we rented. We were able to rent a house in Adenta. And we paid for 2 years. And the landlord said, that time I had gone to buy some antique furniture. And the landlord said, because of our antique furniture, he has, instead of 2 years, he will use the money to cover for 1.5 years. You know.
He was getting ready to eject us.
Yeah. And every year, at the end of the year, he'll come and visit. And he came when he came, he'll bring me diary and stuff. And the following 2 weeks, he'll come and increase the rent.
Yeah.
So finally, I decided that we had bought a land in 1992. I remember when I went to pay for the land, Mohammed Selassie, who was a judge, she sold the land to us. And when in signing the name, she asked, what name should I use? I said, Bishop Charles Agyinasare. She said, Jijame, where is your wife? Add your wife's name. At that time, I thought that I didn't know that it mattered. You know, but she said she had seen so many divorces. And so she wouldn't. And I understood that I easily made it Bishop and Mrs. You know.
God has been so merciful. We lived in that house for about
24
years.
Yes, because we moved in the house in 1999 and we've lived there till now.
Yes,
and we moved in when we hadn't finished the house. We had just done the roofing, the shell, put the doors around, but the doors inside, only the master bedroom had a door. People
see the place and they think we built it yesterday.
No.
It's an old house.
It's because you've taken very good care of the house. You've taken very good care of the house. And I'm sure that now that we are retirement something,
God is going to
we'll move soon.
Yeah.
But you've lived in that house for 24
years.
Yeah. And I can say you manage the house very well. You know, there are times I'll travel and come back and you've broken some parts and you are repairing the thing, you are fixing. There are times I'll come and you are painting the place. You won't even ask me the color I want. Oh, you've kept the house. You've taken very good care.
24 years is not easy.
Yes.
Living in the same.
Honey, it's been good talking to you. But there's so much we can share that will help a young man or woman who is getting married. That will help somebody who is already married. That they can help manage their marriage. And so I think that we need to continue this discussion another time. But it's been a pleasure talking to you, my sweetheart. God bless you. Thank you
for this interview.
Good.
Love you.
Amen.
My, what a story. I really enjoyed watching this and listening to this amazing interview. It reassures us that marriage really does work and two people can love each other and go through the highs and lows and come out on the other side. I really hope you've picked some nuggets of wisdom from this interview, and I hope that it inspires you to work on your marriage and get your marriage to the right place. So I'm grateful. Take care, and we'll be back next week. Bye-bye.